No, I think it's about 10.
But I'm a bit delicate today after 5 o'clock.
Oh, look, I've got, like, wind. Not that.
I'm up for that today, Linda. Not my stomach.
I've got, like, backdrop.
What a great night last night, though, wasn't it? Enjoy yourselves. Yeah. I don't remember getting back to the hotel.
I remember carrying you, darling.
Oh,
Howdy, even though he is very underweight.
now you, madam, today you've done just about everything. Yeah?
Well, not yet, but today is young.
Night is young. We've got to get the helicopter here. Do you know what, listen to me, excuse me, many years ago, Linda arrived at the pier head in Liverpool to launch the Hillman Avenger in a helicopter. And we're going back now, the Hillman Avenger, aren't we?
And they said, you can have the car, but we're taking you up in the helicopter, and we're lowering a ladder down.
That's right.
And you've got to crawl down the ladder and land on the top of the car on a huge cargo ship going up the Mersey. And I said, oh, all right.
And me and my mate Graham Nethercott, we were at Birkenhead Technical College doing biology. Christ knows why. And we sagged off to come and see her. It was fabulous.
Can you imagine? You see that? Like, here's the time thing going,
Yeah.
and now we're 40, 50 years, well, 40 years later.
Like Linda. Yeah. And here we are there in a helicopter again. What she doesn't know is I'm flying it back. And I've had a few scoops. Linda, it's 16 years ago when I first met you properly. It was on the Big Breakfast. Do you remember?
It was only 16?
16 years ago.
I thought it was even
No.
longer.
Maybe 17, 18,
17, 18.
maybe 30.
And then, so tell them how it happened, because Paul didn't know I was going to be on.
It was my last day on the Big Breakfast, and I'm dressed as Mary Poppins, as you are.
I mean, you guys, some of you might not remember, this was like a watershed moment in television. It was a morning show, and Paul wanted them to do it. He did it on a big bed, having breakfast, and people had cups of coffee, you got him everything to be on the show.
It's like being a hooker, honestly. Instead of evening work comes out. And Linda, they said, who's this woman running down the towpath? I thought, oh, I don't know, I haven't got a clue. And they put false French windows in the Big Breakfast house, and of course, she kicks them in. I'm lying on the bed dressed as Mary Poppins, so this is a police raid, what's going on? And it was Linda, and that was it. You know, I nearly died, by the way, you know, and I just thought, why am I dressed as Mary Poppins? I'm meeting Linda Thorson properly for the first time, and look at me.
And I wondered too.
But I tell you something, if you're having a party and you want it to go with a swing, literally, if you want somebody to talk to everybody, to work the room, to be first on the dance floor and last off the dance floor, ask Miss Thorson. So, I'll tell you what we've got, Linda. I envy this. You've got every day's a new day for you, isn't it? You've got a real joy for life.
I think that's absolutely true. And not to inject a moribund or sad note, but my mum died at 57, my sister died a year ago at 63, I turned 64 last Saturday, and so as far as I'm concerned, it's all icing on the cake. But I do think you're born with this. It's like in you, this optimism, and if you don't have it, it's a battle, and that's so, you know, that's what people fight. But if I get depressed after, I don't know, like if I get depressed around noon or something, about 2 o'clock I think, oh, this is fucking boring. No, I'm serious, and then I say no, and I call someone, I ring someone, I do something, because it's like, in other words, I have the ability, but it's born in you, not everyone has it, so I got that gift.
You see, I'm dressed like this because the weatherman said it was going to be in the 30s. I've heard all this before, I wear a suit. So I'm the opposite, I wake up like a cobra. Like the eternal peasants slither out into the... Linda's like Snow White. She's, oh, morning, another day, let's get out. Come on, let's do a power walk around the village. I'll bugger off.
No, but do you think, I mean, the weather people are ridiculously optimistic.
They should be
always
going to
telling
the
us, nothing ever happens, it just keeps raining. But although we have spring in New York, I have to tell you, I moved back to New York last year because I thought I can't take the weather in Britain. I just can't, there's no sun, there's no nothing. So I moved back, and we had the worst winter in history. Spring was dark, wet, and cold. I had the heating on until June 12th or something. And you over here, I was saying, what is going on? It's 85 every day in April and May.
Wonderful.
So you can't follow the weather anymore. But let's not talk about the weather.
Let's talk about what you haven't talked about, which isn't much really today. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to dig up here, but we find something for you. Linda, first of all, why did you first come to England?
Oh God, when I was 3, I stood up on a little stool at one of my mother's cocktail parties. She was head of the Cancer Society in Canada. And she always had these parties, and so I stood up on this little stool. Oh no, sorry, I'm lying. I was born in 47, so it was 53, and the coronation had just happened. And somehow my dad made this little television downstairs. It had a little weird 10-inch oval in it, and he made it in the basement because it was brilliant. And he took, and we saw the coronation, so I stood up now, and I said, "Excuse me, everyone. My husband and I would like to welcome you all to our house on Donish Avenue. And we hope you're having a lovely evening and that you're enjoying the tomato aspect and the deviled eggs and the hamburgers." And people looked at me, I was like 6 years old. So I had this thing, I was born this complete Anglophile. And I just wanted to come here. And I dreamt of going to RADA. I dreamt of being an actor, or, I went through all the sort of thing. Oh, I would watch Ben Casey and think I want to be a doctor. Or I'd watch, Anne Southern on Miss Brooks and I want to be a secretary. And I realised they were all actors. So the acting thing was there, but it was always England. It was always RADA because it was Vivian Leigh and Gone with the Wind, which I've now seen 52 times. It's really, really sick. It's a sickness. But I just thought that the best of the best came from here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to come here and do it. And, everybody thought that it was just one of those, like saying to Ray Austin, you're a stuntman, you're a stuntman, you want to be a director, yeah. But I always said, I'm going to be an actress, I'm going to be a famous actress. And they said, oh, you're going to go to Hollywood. And I said, no, in the theatre in England. So, and it was kind of something that stayed with me. Where did these things come from? No one in my family has anything to do with the theatre. My grandparents were the Canadian Opera, but it's a great blessing to be born knowing what you want to do. Because people struggle with that more than anything, and I have 3 siblings, 2 and a half, and they've never really found out what they wanted to do. And actually my son has been quite jealous. He's 26, Trevor. He's always said, Mum, you always knew exactly what you wanted to do. And now he has discovered he wants to be in television as well. But for years he sort of eschewed the whole idea. But what a gift to be an optimist and to know what you want to do and then to get to do it. So,
I wanted to work in the dry cleaners.
oh yeah, right.
Honestly, that was mine. There was
What,
nobody.
did you like inhaling the fumes?
This was it. I got it back. And there was nobody in our family who dressed up as a prostitute and did a game show. So God knows. Where Linda
No aunts or uncles who did that?
No, nothing.
Unusual.
No, squeaky clean. Now the Avengers. Now I'm going to come out. Tara King was always my favourite. I love the others, but Tara did it for me. She was always my favourite girl. I'll tell you why. Emma Peel and Kathy go, well, acid Sloanes, very cool. Tara had something, the qualities the other two didn't. She was coquettish, and she was cute, and she was, there's bloody nails in a fight. Some of the best fight scenes, in fact, some of the best episodes are the Tara King episodes. Beautifully written, some of the best fight scenes, and some lovely comedy moments like Wish You Were Here. That's just glorious.
No, I know, there were really great moments. And as I said before, Patrick wasn't really particularly into it at that point. But there was something, we kind of lit each other's fires.
Yeah.
And we had these long conversations, and he took me under his wing and he taught me things. And when things went wrong in head office, Patrick would say, you're not going to any of those meetings without me anymore, you take me in there. Because he is the ultimate gentleman. And, but we had a lot of fun because he's out of his mind. Because he's a nudist, because he's like spanking girls' bottoms and things. Not mine, but, well, perhaps I didn't. He never asked.
Tell them about when you went to the party.
It's quickly changing the subject.
Go on. We're going down the spanking road again. Linda Thorson's house of torture.
I've never even spanked my son, ever.
But it was hard for you when you first went into the Avengers. You were very young, you had no idea about the series, you didn't even know the television, and they gave you a bit of a tough time, didn't they, at the beginning?
The honest truth of it is, it was absolutely horrific. I think I got it because I wanted it more than anything. And also, I was brought in by an amazing man named John Bryce. And John Bryce was the executive producer who replaced Brian Clements now at that time. So I was brought in by him, And of course, the heads of Thames, Brian Kessler, Howard, somebody help me out. Howard Thomas. I used to call him full of your socks. Because whenever I walk in his office, his socks were always down there. So my nickname was, I used to say, I call him full of your socks. And there were all these executives who had different ideas. The actual screen testing, what they put me through and what it was really, really strange. It's sort of something with women's lib and everything that you wouldn't be able to do anymore. You wouldn't be able to get a girl in a room with a lot of executives and have her pretend to be Steve's secretary in Tokyo trying to be his secretary. How would she get the job? Sitting on his lap or doing something. I mean, they would think, but of course I didn't, what did I know? And I'll tell you something, none of these executives thought anything was wrong with it either, because it wasn't. It wasn't the way their thinking was, so they weren't doing anything that seemed wrong. But in fact, it was an odd situation. John was very, very protective of me, and he made me believe that this could happen for me. You know, he was really enthusiastic about it happening. But when I came in, there was a lot of stuff that went on that I don't want to go into too much detail. It's in my book, which will come out. But it's just that it was very distressing because I never knew what the problem was. Yeah. That was my problem. I didn't know what the problem was. Was Patrick upset because, you know, I was going out for a drink with John Bryce, or was, you know, with the executives, did they think that they'd made the wrong choice, so then they made my hair blonde? Or was I doing a bad job? Was I going to lose the job? But I also was 20, and I believed in myself. I thought, well, I'll be great. You'll love me. I'll figure out how to do this. So it was that sort of Canadian, you know, that optimism and enthusiasm mixed with people seeming very, very uncertain about me and really what to do with me once they got hold of me. So it wasn't as if I got the show and it was launched and then we just sailed off. It was hugely problematic. First episodes were reshot. Hair was changed. Publicity, the opening of the announcement of me doing the show, I was in a pink dress and sandals with a bubble-headed hairdo, and it was nothing to do with me. And as Ray, or was it Howard, who said that when I was in All Done with Mirrors, I got in an outfit you could see I was comfortable in.
Yeah.
You know, I was wearing something that wasn't sort of, you know,
girly.
And I mean, there were things like I'd be in a little dress and I had to jump over the couch in Steve's flat. That was the stunt. And you know, then I'd go in the front office and I'd have, well, I think your knickers were showing, we can't have that. And I'd be like, well, can the skirts be on? What should I didn't know. And then now I think, oh, no. And I remember telling Patrick that, and he said, that's when he said, you'll never go to those meetings without me. So all of this is so long ago, and it's so interesting, because all those things we know are character building. They made me able to deal all through my life with very difficult situations. But in the beginning, I didn't know how to deal with any of it. And I thought I was amazingly lucky, which I was. So I think I actually became a person who's a real shit disturber. Because eventually, like, I mean, on Emmerdale, I mean, I just said, I'm not doing that. You know, I've got a bisexual son, and you want me to call him a fag and hate him now? I mean, I'm not doing it. And I got my ass fired. Because eventually you just think, no. No. But in the beginning with the Avengers, I will say what happened is it got better and better and better and better. It didn't get worse and worse and worse. And I think there was an understanding that I would be able to do it.
Yeah.
I wasn't screwing up. And I was able to cope with it and the pressure. And there were people who were so good to me. Oh my God. One of them was sitting over there. I mean, Ray Austin was so good to me. Because I think Ray got who I was and how lost I was.
Very young, 20. You've never seen the series. You showed great resilience in dealing with all these executives. I mean, I know what they're like. They're a nightmare.
You've been through, like, you've been this network, that network, and then we've lost him here, we'll get him back there, we'll do that. But you actually, you've got a lot of balls, you know.
Well, I put me Joan Crawford head on when I go in the studio. Terrorise them, you know, and I put a lamb on a lead and a couple of dogs. They don't know what to do. Deaf don't do that when they go in the studio.
Can you imagine really trying to deal with Paul when he's like, up yours, I'm walking. But I still say it's more difficult for women, and it still is.
It is.
I mean, we've come a long way, and now we seem to have kind of backtracked.
Yeah.
I mean, now we seem to have lost, you know, and women are all, you know, sitting around in little tops like this and mini skirts.
Why did you feel with your hair falling out? I mean, that must be shocking because they bleached your hair so much, 90 volume peroxide.
Can you imagine what it's like?
No,
You're in a
I
TV
hate it.
series,
Yeah.
and you wake up in the morning, it was all on the pillow. I'm not, and I had black satin sheets, so, no, I didn't. But, okay. No, but I thought, what is that? Well, I mean, you know, what is that? Oh my God, it's my hair.
And what did they say when you went to look on
They
board?
said it all broke just where the last 90 volume peroxide there. They said, we're going to put you in a wig.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone said sorry. I don't think anybody thought what it was like to be a woman who, literally, I didn't go out. I didn't go out with anyone. I went home, and I'm not saying nobody ever came to my flat,
Yeah.
but I didn't go out because, you know, I used to think, this is what I used to think, oh, what if he really likes me and he wants to go to bed with me? I'll have to take the wig off. I mean, like, this is what it was like in the 60s. It was like, well, if he wants me, of course, I'll have to say yes, and that, I don't know, this is what we were like. But, so I just didn't go out. I didn't take the chance. The thinking was so interesting, because that's literally the way I would think. So I went, right.
But she was a really interesting character, Tara, because the others were seasoned. She wasn't. She was a rookie agent, agent 69. She was obviously in love.
Agent 69.
Agent 69, I believe. But she was obviously hero worship.
I didn't even know what it was.
Didn't you at the time? Didn't you get it? No.
No, darling. I didn't know what a gay person was. I was 69. I didn't know anything. I mean, I really was. I was in Canada. There were no black people.
Oh, you
No,
completely
really,
naive.
it was just like, it was just a great place to grow up. But when I came to England, I discovered, but what that gave me was not any like idea that anyone was different from anyone else ever.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't given any prejudice.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't anything to be prejudiced about. So I actually came here in good condition. But what I insisted on, I wanted to choose the name, and they let me. And what I insisted on is that Tara was in love with Steve. And you know the story. I mean, I just said, this girl comes in, and this is Charlie Steve, who's this man who's like the James Bond. And she's going to be the replacement for Emma Peel, and she's going to work with him. How could she not be in love with him? And I didn't even know how Patrick felt in the beginning. But it worked, didn't it? It worked for him, right? Because he was almost occasionally avuncular with Diana, because she was so capable. And they had magic together, without a doubt. But it wasn't, I've just seen the clips, I've just seen. When I'm looking at Steve, you can see she's in love with him. I mean, because when he talks, she just looks at him, just looking. And I thought, that's the key to this character. So she'll risk her life for him. She will save him in a time comes, which of course is a terrible spy. You're not supposed to have any emotions whatsoever. But I do think it gave her a difference.
Yeah, it did. And she had Irish connections, Tara, didn't she? Because her uncle in Wish You Were Here was Irish. So obviously either Tara's father or mother was Irish.
They were, and my dad was born in Belfast,
so
I am Northern Irish. And so it was, and that's why we know the name Tara, and then King and Country. I still think it's a great name.
I do.
And the other thing to remember, they'd all been misses. And I said, why are they all misses? Are they married to Steve? Because I really didn't know this show. And he said, well, no, but it's more proper if she's there and she arrives and maybe she stays the night on the couch or we don't know it. And I said, ooh, I think it'd be, maybe there's a husband somewhere. Wouldn't it be better if she was Miss? So that was sort of, they cogitated on that. And then I said, I think I should be Miss Tara King. Because she's not married to anybody, so who knows what happens. And she's a free agent, and he's not married either. So, you never knew if she stayed the night or not. But it seemed to me better that she was Miss than Mrs. And then you had to convince the networks in the States, and they actually thought, she shouldn't be married to someone else.
Yeah.
So I got to be Miss Tara King.
Now, the Tara King episodes were huge in France, they were absolutely.
It's the strangest thing. Maybe because I speak French, maybe c'est parce que je parle français, not when I'm drunk though. But maybe it is because it was, they actually love this kind of, I don't know what it is, I think they actually love the romance. They saw something different with her.
She's quite chic, Tara, as well. She's quite
French.
The clothes, beautiful.
The clothes they weren't black leather, the clothes were very unusual in these different colours and styles. And they developed, like Alan Hughes developed these styles on me. And they became, in France, they're still, all the designers still using them.
Yeah.
The culottes and the minis and the colours. I always remember the colours were so amazing. But I think the French sort of liked it because one of the things was the woman who dubbed me in French for French television She was over 80 years old, and she done my voice, and she nailed the voice. And when I met her, which was 40 years ago, she was 80. And she spoke, and I couldn't believe they'd found anyone, because the voice of a character is so particular. I mean, you could be a really, really good in a series, and then they could dub it in German or something, and it would be a voice that wasn't sympathetic or empathetic or, you know, something they could engage with. But this French woman, she had the accent they could love. She had it really, because my voice, it was kind of slightly high, and of course it wasn't, I was Canadian. So I talk like that, you know, I mean, I arrived, and I went to Rod, and people say, you sound like Donald Duck. And I said, well, they said, you have this terrible nasality, and you have upward inflections, and it's really bad. So, you know, then I got this, my screen test, if you've ever seen it on YouTube, I'm smoking it, and I'm sort of terribly like that. I mean, I kind of sound like somebody who's like a king or something. I mean, it was terribly over the top. But then I got this accent, but I think it wasn't quite like a perfect British accent.
Yeah.
So I think that did something. People thought, well, it's not quite. And now I listen to it, it seems perfectly normal, you know, standard English. But those were those little differences about being Canadian.
But there's a cafe in Paris, wasn't there? Tara
King Cafe.
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Did you go over there and do PAs?
Do you know something? I was like Picasso, because he could literally left a restaurant, he just signed a napkin, you know, he never paid a bill. And when I would go over to Paris in those days, they would never let me pay in a restaurant. Yeah, I mean, tour d'argent, anywhere. I could not pay a bill.
Is it still like that now?
No.
I was going to say, they rewrote the helicopter.
Abroad.
Yeah.
No, not a few, I mean, some people can, depending if it's been repeated. But I really don't, you know, I mean, but I did something, I did an experiment. I was over there with a couple of gay friends of mine, and we were wandering around, and I had this dark wig with curly wig, and they said, go on, wear it. And we went out that night, we didn't have to pay the bill.
Really? They recognised you?
That is why they recognised me. They said, oh, it's a white-headed old girl with a wig on. Who looks a bit like Tara King. Nevertheless, it is the French, something about it, and of course I adored that.
Yeah.
What a great place to be loved in.
Yeah, not many.
You know?
But it was like Gracie Fields arriving, was it, when you arrived in Paris, when the Avengers at its
We
peak?
won, Patrick and I, at the end of the first year, won the Prix Triomphe, which at the Théâtre Marignan. I got a huge French agent. She came to me in the wings and she said, are you represented here? I got my own radio show at 5 o'clock every night on France Inter, and I would, from 5 to 6, and it was live like this, and the pop group would be there, and I'd interview the group, and then they'd play their songs, and I had my own radio show in Paris. It was nuts. I had a #1 single, Je suis ici, Here I Am, which played for a year in all the drugstores up and down the Champs-Élysées. I was going to get some mascara or something. Well, here I am, on a ticket, don't have a man. And I'd hear this. So they just took to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, how lucky is that? They like Diana too. What's something like
that? Now, you've always said your favourite episode was Pandora.
I know, and I looked
Why
so
was
fat.
that?
God, my tits were huge. I looked so, because they were so Edwardian costume. And they were wonderful actors in it. I think it was because I'd been doing it for a bit, and I got a chance to play a completely different character. Because she was drugged out, so she thought she was somebody else, and she discovered things in a different way than Tara did. And it was like getting a job in the theatre.
Yeah.
It was like suddenly I was doing a play, and it was a wonderful episode.
Yeah. See, mine is all done with Meredith. That's
it would be my #2, it would be my second.
Yeah.
And then after that, stop me if you've heard this one. Because John Cleese, I couldn't get through. I couldn't get through the show. I mean, remember he was the Eggman, and I mean he cracked me up. Everything he did. It's like when I did the Frankie Howard show. I mean, I would just open the door and Frankie was like, you know. And I'd just be on the floor. When I did Frankie Howard, I'd have a mink coat and little underwear underneath. And he opens the door, because he's called for a call bell. And he opens the door. I used to do those things in those days. I was so mad. And he opens the door and I go, hi. And he went, oh, and I'd just be on the floor.
It's on YouTube, Linda.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
We'd have to do take after take.
Yeah.
But that would be, and I think, and Game was a
That's a good one.
It was a terrific episode. But All Done with Meredith is #2. It would be #1 if somebody said you have to show us an iconic Avengers episode. That would be #1. But Pandora for me, and then the TV Times, remember they used to have and they put me on the cover with the pink dress and that beautiful hat.
Yeah.
And I liked that.
Well, we've got the clip. Did you get the clip ready?
Yeah, it's done.
Persecuted them to show this clip. What we were talking about yesterday, Raymond.
I was on a show the other night and somebody showed the clip of my son being born. And I was like, oh, No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, what the hell didn't you know they were coming in filming him while you were in the throes of contractions?
You've never had a baby. You're
No,
completely
too bloody
out of your
right,
mind.
I
You know what is happening.
I think if fellas got pregnant, my nightie would be around my ankles. Believe me. There's no way. Well, who agrees with me about the fight scene in It's All Done With Mirrors? Was that banned in America, that fight scene? Isn't it considered too violent?
First of all, it was banned in America because one of the things they hated was the knife in his back.
I know,
They didn't like that. And they had a lot of problems with the final kicks. They said it would have killed him. You know, so you can't have that. They had problems with the violence. I mean, it's so strange, the violence on American TV.
It's
I
shocking.
don't understand it. You can't have sex on American TV. You can have all the violence in the world. Over here, it's the other way around. I mean, but it's sort of...
Linda, you can go in a restaurant, say, in America, and you could whip out 20 Lambert and Butler, and they would freak.
Yes.
2 grams of coke and a gun, they wouldn't bat an eyelid. It's very, very strange, isn't it? It really is. And I want to say, I've had a ball, honest to God. I've met some really lovely people. I've met Ray, I've met Sid, I've met all these people I wanted to meet. You know, it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely, I can't tell you the last time I've, had such a good weekend. Last night, of course, we went off the rails. But at least, and you were so generous with the options. Thank you so much for that, really. I mean, that's really, really great. Just to say, thanks very much for coming, and long may the Avengers reign, okay?